Hello, football fans. After all the controversial subjects I like to talk about, it's fun to occasionally do a subject that's not controversial, but it was just something I thought about the other day. Why in football do they call it an onside kick? Okay, so I looked it up on ChatGPT, and I've got the answer here for you here. Uh, in football, why is an onside kick called that? I grew up playing Little League football and all these things. Onside kicks, onside. I thought it had something to do with position of the kick, or I don't know. It's a strange word. Onside kicks. Here it is. The term onside kick in football originates from the historical use of the term onside in sports like rugby and early football to describe players or actions that were within the rules of play. In other words, illegal, within the rules, or a legal play. So that's basically what it means. In modern American football, an onside kick refers to a kickoff play designed to allow the kicking team a chance to regain possession of the ball. Here's why it is called that. Again, then I'll read this, but after that, there are some interesting rules about kickoffs that I didn't realize. Who knew? Who knew? Okay, here's why it's called that. Number one, historical onside concept. In early forms of football and rugby, being onside meant being eligible to play the ball or participate in the play. If the kicking team recovered their own kickoff, it was within the rules and they were considered onside. Okay. Strategic context. During a standard kickoff, the receiving team is expected to gain possession. Normal high and deep kickoff, the receiving team is expected to gain possession. However, if the kicking team deliberately attempts to regain possession by kicking the ball in a specific way, for example, a short bouncing kick, they are acting strategically within the rules of play. Interesting. Maybe it just adds an interesting option or interesting tool in their toolbox. 3. Modern rule application. In American football, for the kicking team to legally recover the ball on a kickoff, it must travel at least 10 yards and not be touched by the receiving team first. This is confusing to me, and I ask later, tell me about it. I'm a little bit confused by that. Okay, I lost my place. Okay, so it must travel 10 yards and not be touched by the receiving team first. This specific action is termed an onside kick because it adheres to the rule that makes the kicking team eligible to regain possession after meeting those conditions. Although there was portions that was confusing, I'll clarify it later. Thus, the term reflects the idea of staying onside or within the permissible play to recover the ball. Over time, it became a specific term for this unique kickoff strategy. Interesting. Okay, why do we say? Why do you say for the kicking team to legally recover the ball on a kickoff, it must travel at least 10 yards and not be touched by the receiving team first? I'm sure that I've seen the ball bounce off a receiving team player, and then recovered by the kicking team. Please explain. Okay. Here's where, again, ChatGPT will quickly recognizes mistake or whatever. You're absolutely correct. Let me clarify the rule for you. In American football, the kicking team can recover a kickoff under two primary circumstances. The ball travels, number one, the ball travels at least 10 yards and has not been touched by the receiving team. In this case, the kicking team is free to recover it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be touched. It doesn't have to be touched, okay? But it apparently can be. Number two, the ball touches a player from the receiving team, regardless of how far it has traveled. As soon as a member of the receiving team touches the ball, it becomes a live ball and the kicking team can recover it immediately, even if it hasn't traveled 10 yards. Oh, if for some reason, I guess the receiving team somehow got within that 10-yard zone and touched the ball first. Okay, interesting. Why is this? This isn't still ChatGPT talking. The 10-yard rule is in place to give the receiving team a fair chance to secure the ball without immediate interference from the kicking team. However, if the receiving team touches the ball, they effectively waive that protection and the ball is live for either team to recover. Interesting. Examples. No touch by the receiving team. The kicking team must wait for the ball to travel 10 yards before they can legally recover it. Okay. Touched by the receiving team. If a receiving team player misjudges the ball and it bounces off them, often called a muff, the kicking team can jump on it immediately, regardless of how far it has traveled. Interesting. What happens after recovery? If a kicking team, you didn't think that the onside kicks or kickoffs were this deep of a subject, I'm sure. I didn't. If the kicking team recovers the ball legally, either after 10 yards or after it touches a receiving player, they gain possession and start their drive from the recovery spot. If the ball doesn't meet these conditions and the kicking team touches it illegally, the receiving team is awarded possession, often with a penalty yardage adjustment. Okay, interesting. Say, this is my next question. Why, if a ball is kicked normally high and deep, and the receiving team decides to let the ball go into the end zone, or it doesn't make it to the end zone, but the receiving player has not touched it, then based on your 10-yard rule, the kicking team should be able to recover the ball and take possession. But I don't think I've seen that happen. My assumption was no touch by the receiving team. The ball is dead when the kicking team touches it, but the receiving team maintains possession. Please explain. Okay, deep subject. Deep subject. Great observation. A little props from ChatGPT. You're correct that in most cases, the receiving team retains possession if they don't touch the ball and the kicking team touches it first. Let me break this down for you. The key distinction, kickoff, a regular normal kickoff versus an onside kick situation. Okay, number one, kickoffs deep and high or into the end zone. The rule, on a normal kickoff, the ball is considered to be a free kick and remains live until, one, it is touched by the receiving team. Number two, it goes out of bounds without being touched. Number three, it touches the ground in the end zone, resulting in a touchback if untouched by either team. Interesting. Okay, I have seen this happen. If the receiving team does not touch the ball, the kicking team cannot recover it in the traditional sense for possession. Instead, if the ball touches the ground and stops without being downed, it becomes dead once the kicking team touches it. and a possession goes to the receiving team at the spot of touch. This is because the rules give the receiving team the right to field the ball without interference. Interesting. As for onside kicks, number 2, an onside kick is a special case of a kickoff. I did not know this. Where the intent is to allow the kicking team to regain possession. If the ball travels 10 yards and isn't touched by the receiving team, the kicking team can recover it and take possession. This is a strange rule. I understand this, what it's saying, but it's like, wow, it's a strange rule. And then ChatGPT continues asking me this, offers this question. Why can't the kicking team keep possession on a normal kickoff? The rules are designed to ensure fairness and protect the receiving team. Fair catch and safety rules. The receiving team is entitled to field the ball without undue interference, allowing the kicking team to claim possession on any untouched kick would make it unfairly easy for them to retain the ball, especially on high or deep kicks. Okay, so they can raise their hand and say, I want a safe catch, and the team backs off, they catch it. But if they fumble it, it's a different situation, right? Or if they say fair catch, and I think they don't have to catch the ball, they just let the ball go and stop where it may. The kicking team can down it, touch it before it goes in the end zone so that the ball doesn't come out to the 25-yard line. Okay. Okay, so where was I? Okay, dead ball. When the kicking team touches the ball first without meeting the 10-yard or the receiving team touch criteria, it results in an illegal touch penalty. The receiving team is awarded possession at the spot of the first touch. Okay, touchbacks. This is a normal kickoff situation. If the ball goes into the end zone untouched, it is automatically a touchback, and the receiving team gets the ball at their 25-yard line on kickoffs. It says, interesting. Why it seems different for onside kicks. Onside kicks are a deliberate strategy where the kicking team is allowed to recover the ball if it satisfies the specific conditions, 10 yards or touched by the receiving team. This creates a unique scenario compared to the regular deep kickoffs. Interesting. In summary, on a normal kickoff, if the receiving team does not touch the ball, possession is theirs unless the ball becomes dead, e.g. going out of bounds or in the end zone. The 10-yard, next bullet point, the 10-yard rule applies only to situations where the kicking team attempts to recover the ball themselves, like an onside kick. Okay. My next question. How about when the kick is somewhere between the two types of kick? For instance, a low, bad kick that goes over the heads of the first row of receiving team's players, but not much further. Good question, eh? I haven't seen this, but I think there was a situation where a woman kicker came in, maybe it was college, I can't remember, came in and kicked the ball, and it was supposed to be a long, deep kick, but it was a bad kick. And embarrassing, but I wondered how that was handled. Okay. So when a kickoff is in that in-between zone, a low, bad kick that travels over the first line of the receiving team but not deep into the field, the rules still depend on a few key principles that govern free kicks. Let's break it down. Key rules in this scenario. The receiving team has priority. The receiving team has the right to field the ball, even if it's a poorly executed in-between type of kick. If the receiving team lets the ball go without touching it, the kicking team cannot gain possession unless the ball travels at least 10 yards and the kicking team is the first to touch it. So that sounds like an onside kicks. Or the receiving team touches it, making it a live ball. Okay, whatever. I'm still a little tiny bit confused, but okay. The kicking team's actions. If the kicking team touches the ball before it has traveled 10 yards and the receiving team hasn't touched it, it results in an illegal touching. The ball is dead at the spot of the illegal touch and the receiving team is awarded possession. If the ball travels at least 10 yards, the kicking team can recover it and take possession, even if the receiving team hasn't touched it. This is an onside kicks situation. The ball goes dead without being touched. If neither team touches the ball and it comes to a stop, the receiving team is awarded possession at the spot where the ball becomes dead. Interesting. So if the ball stops, it's considered dead. Interesting. Ball goes out of bounds. If the ball goes out of bounds without being touched by the receiving team, it's a penalty against the kicking team. The receiving team has the option to either take possession at the spot where the ball went out of bounds or enforce a re-kick or a 5-yard penalty. Enforce a re-kick with a 5-yard penalty against the kicking team. Interesting. Okay. Specific to low bad kick scenarios, if the ball is kicked low and awkwardly, causing confusion, if the 3 bullet points. First one, if the receiving team tries to field it and it bounces off them, the ball is live and the kicking team can recover it. If no one from the receiving team touches it and the ball travels 10 yards, kicking team can legally recover it. Okay, so I guess that answers the question. It becomes the default is it becomes a onside kick situation. If the kicking team touches it first and it hasn't gone 10 yards, it's illegal touching, and the receiving team gets possession at the spot of the illegal touch. Okay, interesting. Strategic implications. Low short kicks can sometimes work like an unintentional onside kick because that's what I was just talking about. They create uncertainty and make it harder for the receiving team to field the ball cleanly. And if the ball bounces unpredictably, it creates the chance that the receiving team can touch it, making it live for recovery by the kicking team. So if it's bouncing all over, it could bounce off a player and become that touch situation, then it's a free ball, right? However, unless the ball travels 10 yards or the receiving team touches it, the kicking team cannot legally recover the ball. Interesting. Okay, so some questions do remain. In summary, a low bad kick falls under the same rules as any other kickoff. If it is untouched by the receiving team and hasn't traveled 10 yards, the kicking team cannot legally recover it. If it travels 10 yards or touches a receiving team player, the kicking team can recover it and take possession. And I follow up with this question. What about a normal high deep kickoff ball that does not go into the end zone? I have seen kicking teams try to touch the ball dead as near to the end zone as possible. The ball has gone beyond the 10 yards, but the receiving team retains possession. Please explain. I guess reading it clearly, I guess I did answer my question already, but I asked the question again. So let's listen. This is another important nuance of the kickoff rules. Here's what's happening in the scenario you described, where the ball is kicked deep but does not reach the end zone, and the kicking team attempts to down it near the goal line. Key rule in play. On a kickoff, the receiving team retains possession unless one of the following happens. The ball is recovered by the kicking team legally after 10 yards and without being touched by a receiving team. The ball is muffed or touched by the receiving team and then recovered by the kicking team. However, if the ball is untouched by the receiving team and the kicking team touches it, it results in an illegal touching even though the ball has traveled 10 yards. Interesting. The receiving team is awarded possession of the spot where the ball was first touched by the kicking team. Okay. Normal kickoff. Sorry, I'm still this is getting a little bit confusing to me, but I'm hoping you understand it. Why does the kicking team try to down the ball? I think it's obvious, but let's read this. The situation is different from an onside kick because the kicking team is not trying to recover the ball for possession. Instead, the kicking team attempts to control where the ball becomes dead by touching it. The receiving team gains possession, but the kicking team's touch ensures the ball doesn't roll into the end zone for a touchback, which would give the receiving team the ball at the 25-yard line. By downing the ball close to the goal line as possible, the kicking team forces the receiving team to start their drive from a more disadvantageous position, increasing their chance to defend. Okay, that's pretty obvious. What happens after the kicking team touches the ball? If the receiving team has not touched the ball is declared dead at the spot, the first touching by the kicking team. The receiving team automatically gains possession at that spot. If the receiving team touches the ball before the kicking team, the ball becomes live and the kicking team can recover it for possession. I've said that several times. I don't know why it keeps repeating that. Why doesn't the kicking team gain possession after 10 yards? Why doesn't the kicking team gain possession after 10 yards? While the ball has traveled beyond the 10-yard minimum, possession on kickoffs is still governed by the priority rules. This is where it gets a little confusing for me. The receiving team is entitled to possession unless they make a mistake, like touching the ball and failing to secure it. The 10-yard rule only gives the kicking team the right to recover the ball on an onside kick if the receiving team touches the ball first. So I'm a little bit confused there. How about there's a deliberate onside kick, or a kind of an onside kick that is kind of a mistake. It becomes an onside kick when they make a mistake and it's a bad kick. So anyways, I'll let you chew on this. And please comment, give me comments below. On a deep kick, the kicking team's touch doesn't change the rule that the receiving team has the right to possession. Okay, so in summary, the kicking team touches the ball to control its placement or to prevent a touchback. The receiving team retains possession until they've touched the ball and failed to secure it. 3, the kicking team's actions to down the ball are strategic but do not transfer possession. Okay, and then I follow up with this question. Your explanation is confusing. Why not say an onside kick is only when the kickoff is an obvious attempt by the kicking team to get back possession of the ball by kicking a short, hard-to-handle ball or bounce a low ball off of one of the front line of the receiving team or something like that? That's my question. its response. You're absolutely right. Clarity is key. Let me simplify and refine the explanation by emphasizing this distinction between onside kicks and regular kickoffs in a straightforward way. This is the last part here. Okay. What is an onside kick? An onside kick is a specific type of kickoff where the kicking team deliberately tries to regain possession of the ball. This is typically done by kicking the ball short, just over 10 yards, and hard, so it becomes difficult for the receiving team to handle, or attempting to bounce the ball off a player from the receiving team to make it live and recoverable. Interesting. What makes onside kicks unique? The kicking team is allowed to recover the ball only if the ball travels at least 10 yards without being touched by the receiving team, or the receiving team touches the ball first, making it live. Keep saying the same thing. If neither of these conditions is met, the kicking team touches the ball, it's illegal touching, and the receiving team is awarded possession. Why are regular kickoffs different? For normal deep kickoffs, the receiving team has the right to field the ball without interference from the kicking team. The kicking team cannot gain possession unless the receiving team touches the ball first and it fails to secure it, or can down the ball to control where it becomes dead if the receiving team doesn't touch it, but the receiving team still keeps possession. Okay, and then it gives me a little comparison graph here that I won't read because it's basically the same thing I've been saying. But then I'll get down to the bottom line. Bottom line, onside kicks are intentional attempts to regain possession. On regular kickoffs, even if the ball travels 10 plus yards, the receiving team has the right to possession unless they touch it and fail to secure it. This distinction keeps the game fair and ensures clarity in how possessions are determined. Does that make it clearer? I guess. Still, it's a weird rule in football. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and complain or do whatever.